Hello everybody, how are we? Hope you've been well. Constant Teacher here. This is Inspire YG. YG is an acronym for Young Generation. So if it's your first time here, thank you for popping in. I really appreciate whoever brought you my direction. And if it's YouTube, thank you YouTube. So thank you for popping in. Like I said, welcome to Inspire YG. I pop in here once a week, all things remaining constant in my life, and I talk about my journey as an international student. So I am not a student anymore, but I have been a student in New South Wales for many years. Let's just say that. I'm no longer a student, but I'm very passionate about anything international student, any opportunities that are out there for that cohort, because I've been one. I know how valuable it would be to get information about that journey. And so I pop in here once a week, and I share those opportunities. I share my journey, any experiences that I've had that I feel they are transferable and they're worth sharing and they're valuable. That's what I pop in here to do. So I came to Australia from Kenya a couple of years ago, like I said, and I went through a journey. It was really a journey of ups and downs. It's been around about, I think it's been 10 years now. Wow, it's going to be 10 years this year in July. So I don't know where time has gone. Time is flying. So if you're thinking of doing something and you're feeling like it's going to take time, trust me, 10 years is like a blink of an eye. So thank you for everybody who subscribed. I've been so privileged to have so many people share a couple of videos that I've done in the past couple of weeks about opportunities in New South Wales for overseas teachers. And I think those videos have really got they have reached the people they were supposed to reach, because I've received valuable feedback from them. So thank you for everybody who shared. Thank you for everybody who applied, and keep waiting for those expression of interest. I'm sure you hear from the Department of Education in New South Wales. So today I'm going to give a shout out to a person called Benedicta. Shout out to you, Benedicta. They watched my video a couple of days ago, and they mentioned that they would want me to talk about a topic that I had already was in the pipeline for me to talk about, which is Australian resumes, or CV, and that's a guide for formatting tips of how to write an Australian resume to get yourself that job that you are looking for. So I will be talking about that, and I will highlight, there's an article I came across which I think it's absolutely amazing, and I will share it at the description box of this video. For more tips, I'll be directing you there, and I'll talk about some frequently asked questions on writing a resume in Australia, references, what you should do with those, and types of resume template, because there are different types of resume templates, what to include in your resume, and a little bit about the layout. I might not take you through it on a live session, but I will put a link on the description box for you to look at a couple of blogs and articles that have gone in depth on the same. So I will be with you shortly. Welcome back. So today's video is going to be interesting, and I love resume writing, where it's not something that I do professionally. I know there are people who do professionally. For example, the person I will give a shout out to, or maybe just give them my props, because I think I need to reference where I get my materials, and this is Andre Kate. I hope I did butcher their name. So they are a resume, CV, and cover letter writing expert at Career Blog, which is where I got this article from. I like to talk about my experiences with certain the topics that I talk about, but I also like to reference. I like evidence-based information. I like facts. Yes. So this is me in a nutshell. So every country has its own way, its own culture, way of doing things, and obviously specific requirements when it comes to writing a CV or a resume, and Australia is obviously not different. And if you're doing a job search in Aussie, I think you will have to follow some of the guidelines that they have on language to use, on structure, on just little things on the content that is supposed to be in that resume, Australia-wise. So it's very different, and you will be surprised, just like I was surprised on some of the things that are very different, maybe in your country or what you have seen online, doing a bit of research, and what you've known all your life. I'm just about to challenge everything that you've known in your life, because sometimes I feel like as human beings we feel like our own experiences are the right experiences, and somebody else's experiences is not the right way. But it's just based on where we come from in our primary socialization, and that's about it. Otherwise, it's good to learn when you go to different countries. It's good to learn their way of life so that you can get things going well for you. So resume is so I'm going to be looking at my laptop here, because this is where I have the article and this is where I have the information. So bear with me if I'm looking down, but I'll try and give you eye contact as much as I can. So what do resume and CV refer to in Australia? So like I said, I'll go through a bit of frequently asked questions, and then I will proceed to give you the most important information I think you need when you're writing or when you're drafting your resume to find a job in Australia. So resume and CV in Australia, there are different formatting rules that you should be aware of, and how long the resume should be, and also should you include a photo. These are some of the frequently asked questions, and we will go through it. And I'm very happy because these are experts who've written this article, and so you're getting the right information for the same for the resume writing. So what makes an Australian resume different from every other resume? So for example, it might appear similar to the US in terms of the resume formatting, and I'm referencing US because a lot of the information, articles, magazines, a lot of things that we are exposed to growing up, even in Kenya myself, were all American English, or they were written in American English and ways of formatting. And so when you move to Australia or you go to Britain is very different. And Australia and Britain seems English is almost the same. And I think, if you're watching this video and you're from Britain, let me know if you come across Australian article and Australian peer-reviewed journals, and tell me whether the language is very different. I just seem to see that they work the same, but the US is a bit different. So the Australian resume differs some details. So the Australian resume is different from the US in that in Australia they could say a CV and a resume and they would mean the same thing. So if someone asked you for a resume, they're pretty much, or asked you for a CV, those words are the resume and CV are used interchangeably, so it means the same thing. However, if you're in the US, CV and resume, they actually don't mean the same thing. So in the US, a resume is typically just one page, and that's it. Whereas in Australia, if someone asked you to bring a resume, they're not expecting you to just bring one page. That would be a point of disqualification. So in Australia, a resume should definitely be more than one page. And if you are a professional, 3 to 4 pages is what you're looking at. That is what is a standard. That's what is expected. If you're a recent graduate and do not have very much experience in the field to which you're applying a job for, so 2 pages would just be enough. The only difference would be the content in that page, in those 2 pages. So it just says here that don't forget to be on point. So even though it gives you an opportunity to write 4 pages, don't go ranting and write an 4,000 words essay. You still have to go straight to the point. I think there was an article I saw that stated that hiring managers take seconds. I think it's about 6 to 7 seconds to actually determine if they're going to go through your resume in depth. So whatever you say, especially at the top, and I'll talk about the summary or the objective, the aim of your the aim or the objective page. Statement is quite important. It will let the hiring manager know if they should continue reading your resume or they'll just probably put it on the side. So if you do have a lot of experience though, let's say 10 years and above, you might end up having too much information, and so maybe 4 pages might not even be containable, or they might all the experience that you have might not fit in those 4 pages. So what is recommended is to not put anything in your resume that is older than 10 years. So keep it to 10 years max. So the other question is, are there any language expectation for Australian resumes? Now, this is an interesting one because I went through this myself because I did not know that was a thing. Now, it's one of the things that I say, watch some of my videos that I've done on experiences as an immigrant, and I didn't even remember to talk about language, but it's actually one of those experiences. I experienced this mostly not at TAFE where I started. I experienced this from ACU, Australian Catholic University, because Australian language, it's different. The way they write is different. So for example, if you're applying for a job in Australia, you need to make sure that your resume is written in the correct Australian language or English. So for example, in Australian, they will use, so there's a difference between Z and S when you're talking about is Australian English and American English. For example, in Australia, they would say organize with an S. In America, it will be organize with a Z. So if you write in Australia a Z and not an S, at uni, the lecturer can actually circle. You're going to have so many typos because of actually using American English as opposed to Australian English. The same thing as if you're writing it as an ongoing thing. Like, for example, if it's something like organizing, then you're supposed to actually write, even if you're writing in Australia, organizing, so S. They might pronounce it organizing, but actually writing it is S. Same thing with things like organization. You're not going to write the Z in Australia, it will be an S. So it will almost sound like you're saying organization. Nobody says organization. It will be organization, but you're going to write it as an S. That's the difference. S and Z. The other difference in Australian English is the or our. For example, words like favor, labor, and color. In Australia, you have to use our. In Australian English and British English, so you have to write the color as COLOUR, our. But in America, it's actually a single. It's just an OR. So it's COLOUR. Now, if you it sounds like it's a tiny thing and it's not something you should worry about, but I'm telling you, if you're writing a paper at uni, and especially anything that is any formal writing, you have to use Australian language. If you're actually approaching an Australian employer, or an Australia, if you're writing a paper to go to an Australian lecturer or education institution. The other thing is, did I miss anything else? Oh, the other thing is the L, the single L and the double L. So in Australia and the British English, if you're writing something, for example, what are the words that they need single L? I think I'll probably, I don't know why I didn't write it here, which is funny because it's something that I know, but now it has escaped me. I'll find some of the things that you need. So Australia with a double L and the American with a single L. I will highlight. I will put that up here. The next question that is normally asked a lot is, do you include a photo in your Australian resume? Apparently, in some countries, for example, Belgium, France, and Germany, you actually I don't know whether it's a mandated requirement, but people do put pictures on their resume. In Australia, however, this doesn't apply. So unless you're applying for a job related to your appearance, for example, like a modeling job or acting job, where they might want you to put a bit of put your picture. In other occupations, it's actually not a requirement. If anything, in Australia, actually organizations are, it's not a requirement, and it's actually illegal for organizations to ask you to provide those kind of information. So things like your marital status, languages, languages you speak at home, your appearance, all these things, they're not required. And no organization should actually ask for those information. Why? Because it has been stated in the past that that information can actually be used for profiling. Yeah, unfortunately, we are still there in 2023, where a hiring manager can look at your resume, see your country of birth or nationality or your appearance, and I'll give you a job, just disqualify you from that point. So those are not information. That is not information you should put on your resume, and no organization should do it. It's actually illegal in Australia for organizations. So they shouldn't ask for your age, they shouldn't ask for your marital status, they shouldn't ask for your religion, sexual preferences, or nationalities. So don't put those on your resume. Pretty much what you need in the contact information section of your resume is your name, your address, your phone number, and your email address, and that's about it. So the other thing is, I will put on the description box this article so that you can look at typical Australian resume sections, and some of the templates will show you how they write the format and the layout. So I'll put this article on the description box so that you can see that. I'm not going to go through all that here. Let's talk about work experience. So your work experience should be displayed in a reverse chronological order. With each entry, you should provide a start and an end date. So when I mean reverse chronological order, I mean from the current job. So for example, if you're working at the moment, you're going to say, and you probably started the job in 2018, it will be 2018/present. So you're showing that that's where you're working at the moment, and then go in that order from the first job experience you ever had, but the first one should be your current work experience. You also have to write your achievements, some of the tasks or achievements that you have within that role, and don't just say something like, I manage a large team. What's a large team? A large team can be 10 people, can be 150 people. Be specific. And the thing about being specific in Australia is very important. I'll talk about in the future. I'll do another video on answering the criteria section of most government jobs. It's something that you have to be very specific. You can't just generalize things. So you can just say that you developed and launched promotional campaign and you increase sales, but you don't have an exact figure or at least an approximate figure of how much of that increase in sales you did. You have to be very specific. If it was 10%, say it was I had an increment or an increase of 10% in sales. So very specific. That's the most accurate thing, or at least that gets you ahead. The other thing is education. So your education history should be displayed as well in reverse chronological order. Chronological. Why am I having trouble saying that word? Reverse chronological order. So what that means is you're also going to start with your current or your recently finished education qualification. So for example, if you have done a diploma or a certificate, a diploma, and then a degree or a master's, so you will start with a master's, then say the year you did it and the year you finished. You started and the year you finished. Then you go like that until the first school, maybe that's high school. Then let's talk about skills. Now, skills is also another one that I found that in Australia, they actually have, you can go online and you can do it there and then have that screenshot on your resume. Or you can use the skills that they have on LinkedIn as well. There's a list of skills, and there's a simple list that they have on this blog, and that's why I'll post this article on the description box to show you a snapshot of what you can put or what the information you can have under skills. But that means any skills you've got. If you've got skills as a visual design or storytelling, if you've got skills as a media production, infographic, anything that you've got, Photoshop skills, any skills that you've got, you can put them there. Coding, if you can do that, any kind of skills. It could be computer packages, if you're good at Word, PowerPoint, usage of PowerPoint, Excel, intermediate, advanced, or foundation. All those skills, you can put them on your resume as well, especially if they're connected to the kind of job that you're applying. The other thing is volunteer experience. Now, I said I would do a video on volunteering. Got no excuse why I haven't done that yet. I will do that because that's something I'm very passionate about. And if you have any volunteer experience, it's very important to actually note that in your resume. Hiring managers appreciate it. Now, you will be surprised at how much having volunteering experience is a plus for you, not just when you're applying for jobs, but even when you are going to uni, when you're applying for uni, when you're applying for scholarships, even when they are even when it's on merit basis. It's something that I have seen that is very much appreciated. There's something that it does to a hiring manager to know that you've spent your time to actually help other people, to give a lending hand. It says so much about you. It says so much that you can sacrifice yourself for others. There's something there. I'm still yet to know what it is, but in Australia, it actually works a lot if you can say that, or if you can prove that you have a volunteering experience. So the other thing it is, because in Australia, volunteering experience, even when you're volunteering and you're not being paid for it, in some organization, it actually does count as work experience as well. So that's why I'm saying it's actually very important to highlight it, whether it was paid or unpaid, and especially if it does match the kind of job that you're applying for, or if it's related to your profession. So references, let's go to the next one. The next one was references. So references, you're going to need the name of your referee, the position, and the phone number of your referee. And that will be basically enough. So what I saw in Kenya, or what I used to do in Kenya, I always used to have like email address of the place my referee works, their email address. I would get all that information. In Australia, it's actually not required. If you just have their name, their position, and their phone number, that's pretty much it. Now, what to note is that most hiring managers, they actually do contact the references after the interview process. And you're not going to believe how, I know my experience in Kenya was, I know that because most of my referees told me they never got a call, even though I got jobs. But in Australia, it's most organizations will call one or two of your referees. So it's important to speak to your referees beforehand and inform them, or even send them send them a page of your position description, the job that you have applied, the job that you're being called for an interview for, so that they have some sort of an idea of what might be required of them. Remember that your referees are probably very important people because of their positions or whatever they are working. So this could be managers, it could be your previous or your current or previous supervisors. So these are not people who just have time to waste. And so giving them clear information of what could be required of them, including the information about where you're going to work and what your role will be, position description or of your job, then that will help them to prepare for the call from your potential employer. So contact them beforehand. The other thing is request them if they want to have their name and their phone number on your resume as you apply for the job. Some referees would actually tell you, just give my contact after the interview, after they ask you. Some employers don't mind that. They don't mind that after the interview, if you progress, then they can tell you, send us your referees and the people you want us to contact. So you don't have to have your referees on your resume. It's not a must, but you definitely will have to provide them at the interview stage or after the interview stage, because it's a requirement, and especially most government jobs, it's a requirement to actually, as a hiring manager, to actually contact the referees. So I think, I don't know whether I've missed anything. So I will put, like I said, I'll put this article on the description box so that you can see some examples of Australian resume or the examples of different templates. Oh, that's the other thing I want to talk about. Types of resume templates. So in Australia, you have a college or university resume template. Now, this one is not very simple, and it's because a lot of students don't have a lot of experience, especially just coming from high school, then straight to uni, pretty much don't have much work experience in the roles they're applying for or in their qualification. So the resume doesn't have to be so big, and most often than not, it's like 2 pages or something or so, and it's because you don't really have so much to put in there. So pretty much very simple and organized format that would do. Now, professional resume template. Now, this one is the one that a lot of people go to, especially those who've had work experience in the areas in which they're applying the job for. And it's more detailed, and it's the one that probably goes up to 4 pages. It is most approved by a lot of hiring managers, and it's a favorite of many Australians as well. So you will find that there. There's also a creative resume template. That's the third one. And this one, it's more even in the creative space. Let's say advertising, sales and marketing, design, creative fields. This is when you're going to need this, and it's probably a bit different from the other two. So I will put more further information on convincing resume articles that have been written by different people. Just bear in mind some of them may be American and could include American English spelling, and it might not highlight that because it's not definitely written. They're not going to write an article in America thinking of Australian English. So keep that in mind. However, I think that's the most important. I think I probably highlighted every single thing I think is important. The only other thing that I might mention is it is highly recommended to include an attention-grabbing resume objective or summary that will make the recruiter intrigued to actually read your resume, all of it, not just skim through and keep it aside. So I will mention one of the other reasons why, maybe in conclusion. So this is a statement I saw in one of the articles. Considering our high exposure to American English in Australia, mistakes in writing, like especially how I was talking about the essays, organize things like that, they will be inevitable. It also doesn't help. Microsoft is in America, so the way the formatting is, especially in a Word document, will also be American English. So find yourself tools to, maybe after you write your resume, go at the top far right, at the ribbon on the far right, find and replace, and just, you can write IZE, for if you had words like organize or ZE, replace that with SE. If you know what I mean, I might have a screenshot and share it here, what I mean, but you might have to do it manually just because Australian, we're also using American-made computers, so the language or the formatting will be in American English. So it's going to be a double job, but however, it's by being careful to use only in Australian or British English in your writing for Australian schools, universities, or even when you're writing a resume, you will demonstrate to the Australian reader, your tutor, your teacher, your hiring manager, your recruiter, your improved literacy in Australian English, and as reflected in your understanding of the differences between the two variants of English. And that's obviously going to be it's a point. It really is a point. So I hope that helps. I know this video has been a bit longer than usual, but it will be very helpful, especially if you're hoping to apply for a job in Australia. So thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. If you know someone applying for a job in Australia, share this video with them. I'm sure it will be helpful. And until the next time, bye.